These videos aren't about hate for other mediums. It's about helping each and every one of you to see that every medium has their own way of connecting to the spirit world. I'm going to be using all of the forthcoming videos to highlight to each and every one of you some of the different notions that mediums have. It doesn't mean they're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and they're wrong. It's about sharing with mankind the beauty of mediumship, that you are all unique and that it should be welcomed in just the same way. If you're new to the channel, my name is Psychic Medium Jordan Cockburn, and I can prove with evidence of the afterlife. I've helped thousands of people already on this earth plane to once again be able to reach out and contact their loved ones in spirit from the understandings and the teachings, and now it's your turn. Each and every one of you, my friends, can become great mediums. In here at Help Heal Serve, we can give you the very foundations to forge your own unique understanding. Not to mention we have the loving and supporting Help Heal Serve family. I'd like to say a big massive thank you to every one of the channel members. Thank you to every one of the subscribers. Thank you to everyone who likes, comments, shares and subscribes to the channel. It means a lot. Remember, if you do enjoy this style of video, to let us know down in the comments who your favourite medium is, and we'll take a look at their work in a future video. Let's get into it. How do you know when there is a spirit with you? Let's take a look at Matt's interpretation.
And here's how. Remember that young kids can see spirit, and more importantly, pets can see spirit.
Using the ability of clairvoyance, right? I've seen the spirit world from the age of 6-year-old. And I know a lot of you might think, well, actually, that's quite spooky. That's quite scary. It was as a child growing up, because I didn't really have any of the understandings that I've got now. I didn't know this was going to be my path. And certainly when I was a child, it wasn't a case of just going on the internet. And to be completely honest, right, whilst I had dial-up, the knowledge wasn't there. And even if I had have managed somehow to get onto the internet to try and find some of the answers that I sought, believe me, my friends, I would have been absolutely terrified. Look, it's what information is out there on the internet right now. You have people needing to cleanse, people needing to protect, people needing to do this, people need to do that. That's terrifying for a child. That's why we created To Help Heal Serve, to ensure that no child had to go through what I went through. You know, I was scared to speak about what I was saying. I felt like I was going crazy. And there'll be a lot of you who've probably felt that when you were a child also, but that's why we made the message of Help Heal Serve, to help normalise mediumship, to help prove without any doubt that there is an afterlife. Children will see using clairvoyance, so will animals. It's a little bit different in the respect of how they're going to see. So first of all, when I was at the age of 6-year-old, the reason why I seen spirit is I hadn't been conditioned. My brain, whilst I knew I shouldn't have been seeing spirits in those moments because it just felt wrong, there was a disconnect within the brain and what my eyes were actually perceiving. There was a complete disconnect. So in the moments of me seeing two full body apparitions, for those of you who don't know, they are spirit in their full form. When I was seeing them, I knew something was happening. It felt wrong. My body went into fight or flight. But that's why a lot of people will see spirits at a very, very young age. They haven't been told what is right or what is wrong, what you should be seeing, what you shouldn't be seeing. Normally, when children get to the age of 6 to 7 to 8-year-old, they start suppressing their abilities. A lot of you have been led to believe that you lose your abilities, or you, for whatever fault, have stopped having them. It's not. You've always got them. Every one of you, I can prove without any doubt that you all are mediums. You are all psychics. I prove it time and time again. You can all do this. What the difference is the understandings. Through some of the fear-based notions, we begin to suppress our humanistic abilities. This is what happens when you become conditioned to believe what you shouldn't see, what you should be seeing. My first experience seeing spirit, I'll always stay with this, to be completely honest with you. It was magical, it was terrifying, and it was everything in between. Often when I explain it to people, right, because the only way to kind of depict seeing spirit for myself for the very first time, because I can only give you my views, my opinions of the experiences that I've went through. In those moments, I felt love, fear, panic, uncertainty, every emotion that you can probably depict in a situation where you have no control, you are powerless, I felt. However, at that time and in those moments, whilst I felt all of these different earthly emotions, an unconditional love washed over. I knew that in those moments, there was no harm coming to me. There was, even though my little racing brain, and every time I mention it, right, the spirit world shows what I look like. And I looked absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified. My little face was like, as a 6-year-old child would be. I might as well tell you the story of it, actually, because I know there's going to be a lot of you who've heard the story before. There might be a lot of you who are new to the platform and you've never heard the story before. It all started when I was actually watching The Simpsons. I was sitting in my sitting room and I was watching The Simpsons, and all of a sudden, for the very, very first time, I used the ability of clairaudience. At the time, I didn't know what this was, and I later in life realised it's what mankind call clairaudience. And I was sitting and something drew us to the patio door. And I was looking out of this clear glass, looking up into the sky. And it was strange, if I'm honest, because even looking back now, the sky had formed this weird pattern. It was like purpley blue, and there was loads of weird things going on with the sky. And I heard, "We're coming tonight." And in those moments, being a child, hearing that, when there was no one in the room, I was a little bit freaked out. I was a little bit confused. Who's coming tonight? What's coming tonight? Anyway, the panic quickly washed over and I started watching The Simpsons once again. Can't remember what episode. People ask us all the time. I don't know what episode it was. For fast forward, and to this day, I don't exactly know what time of night it was, but it was late enough for there to be silence in the house. A lot of people, right, when they experience paranormal activity, it's not because spirits come out at night. It's because your house, your home becomes silent. It's at its quietest. Therefore, you can hear a pin drop. Yeah. It was about, let's just say for argument's sake of this video, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I always remember lying. I had this thing where I used to love sleeping in sleeping bags. I don't know. There was just something about them that it was nice and cozy. And I remember looking out of the door of the bedroom and seeing what I can only describe as being like a pulsating, faint but noticeable light. You will all be very familiar with your home layouts, where your bedroom is, where your light switches are, and all of this. Where the light was coming from, I knew that there was no light source that could be possibly causing it, but it was faint enough for us not to kind of worry that much. So I closed my eyes and I pulled up the sleeping bag. It was like a sleeping bag quilt sort of thing, and I pulled it up over my eyes. And I always remember, in my mind, I remembered hearing that voice. I remembered hearing, "We're coming tonight." And instantly, in those moments, I thought I was being taken by aliens. A lot of you might say I was taken by aliens and a lot of darker things. But in those moments, I remember the fear that went through my mind, hearing that voice again. "We're coming tonight." I covered me face, pulls down the sleeping bag quilt sort of thing. And I remember seeing the light had now went from being just this white, faint, shimmering light. It had magnified. It was weird in a sense because there was no way for us to visually be able to reference it to a white on this planet. When I say to you, the colour white, a lot of you will imagine the colour white instantly. Well, this was a white like I couldn't describe. It was almost pulsating and radiating. It was glowing at the same time. And as I looked out of the bedroom door, where it was now, it had moved in position. So it wasn't a fixed source, and not the source that you put in your food either. It wasn't fixed. It was effectively in transit. So it was a transient light moving, and it was now getting to the point where I was almost definitely going to be seeing it imminent. Covered my eyes, as most of you probably would in that situation. And I prayed. I was like, please, I don't want to go. I don't want to go from the planet, blah, 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 all of the little things that run through a little child's mind. And I then pulled it down again. And to my horror and my awe, there in front of me were 2 full-bodied apparitions. Apparitions just staring vacantly, just looking at us like, oh. And in those moments, I felt a paralysing, crippling fear. a numbness to my body that I had never experienced before, tingling sensations all over, cold, dread just oozing from me. I was frozen still in time. I couldn't move. I could see the light switch behind them and I wanted to get to that light switch to put it on, but something wouldn't let me. Before everyone says, oh, that's because you were being terrorized by spirits. No, it wasn't. It was because my brain was seeing something that it knew in those moments it was of the material. The eyes were perceiving something that wasn't there. So therefore, my brain was in fight or flight. It was confused. It didn't know what it should do in that moment. I was paralyzed, crippled with fear. Then an unconditional love washed over. I knew that I was all right. I knew that I was okay. It was as if, when something's going wrong in your world and you're looking for emotional support for someone. And all you need is just that one person to say, look, it's going to be all right. More importantly, you're going to be all right. It kind of gives you that little bit of a warmth in your heart. It gives you a little bit of more conviction, a little bit more confidence that things are going to turn out all right. Even though you're going through all of the troubles, all of the heartache, all of the pain, the suffering, it's all going to be worth it in the end. Well, I had that sort of a feeling wash over. Unconditional love that you can't replicate, duplicate on this planet. There isn't a human alive or a humanistic scenario where you're going to experience this. This is just pure, raw energy, pure, raw love. So that was my first encounter, seeing a spirit. I then seen spirit for the entirety of my life, if I'm honest, to the point where I see spirits now on a daily basis. It's the only time I know that I've been communicating with a spirit is when they disappear. Which also, going back to the story, right, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. A lot of you, when you imagine spirits, you're going to imagine just the silhouette of a person. And then, how did it disappear? Well, for me, and it's the only time I've ever seen this happen, if I'm honest, because now I don't know the difference. Even after that, spirits just, they're there, then they're gone. The only way to describe it, they're there, then they're gone. However, on this time, it was like watching something out of a movie like Stargate, where you've got sci-fi, where you see the spirit just dissolved upwards. I've seen something similar on the second time, but what happened was spirit shot through the floor, which it was a black cloak mass, which a lot of you believe are demons, a lot of you believe the evil things. There is no difference between a white and a black ghost at all. It's just the way that your eyes have perceived it due to the light factors in a given moment. That's the only thing that is different. The way that your eyes have perceived that energy burst in that moment. There is no difference between a white and a black spirit at all. But yes, the black spirit, effectively from the top, it shot downwards. And this was at a castle, by the way. I've got videos explaining there's all of me different stories if you're interested in that sort of thing. But I'm going to try and keep it out because we'll be here for ages explaining it. But yeah, so I've seen two different forms which were really amazing and fascinating to me, all of the same. The way that the spirit world can just transcend up and dissolve upwards. And they can also shoot down. And then the majority of the time, they're just there and then they're gone. But yeah, the reason why I could see spirit at that time, even though my brain knew that it was wrong what I was saying, I hadn't really been told what to believe, what I shouldn't. It was when I started speaking about it, when fear become paramount in people around me, and they were like, no, you shouldn't be saying that. Don't say silly things like that. And that's what then begins and makes you start to suppress your clear senses.
You ever wonder why pets don't fear death? They don't fear passing. They don't fear leaving this world. It's because our pets can actually see the spirit world every single day. And I know it's...
And what Matt's saying there is 100% completely correct. How many of you have dogs, have cats that will just, and I don't mean to scare you, yeah, but they'll just look into the corner of the room, or they'll be watching the ceiling, and then they'll be watching something move along the ceiling. It's not because the spirit worlds are trapped in the corner of your room. It's not because they're trying to scare you or spook you out. You've got to realise we are energy beings living in the materialistic plane. As we accommodate a human vessel, a flesh suit, whatever you want to call it, as you accommodate that vessel, we are no longer energy. However, energy is in abundance all of around us still. That's why a lot of people who believe that there are portals, you believe all of these different man-made concepts that you manifest energy in this world. The energy's already there. The energy's already working with you. Your intent in those moments may help you to be able to become aware of the energy at best, but you don't open portals. You don't open any of these things of these natures. That's just the way that mankind perceive energy to be. Energy is already here, and we live with energy, if that makes sense. Your animals haven't been told what they should be seeing and what they shouldn't. Therefore, freely, and they will use the ability of clairvoyance. They can just access it freely. They'll just watch people just walking past you and stuff like that. It's absolutely awesome.
It sounds.
Let me know down in the comment section, right, if you've got an animal, and let me know what happens. It would be nice to see all of the community members and everyone sharing their stories of how their pets. And also, let me know if you've ever seen a ghost. I don't call them ghosts, I call them spirits, because a ghost, the terminology ghost, implies that it's just a residual energy. It's trapped in time. It's unintelligible. It's got no sustenance to it. It's got nothing. Whereas I can prove with evidence that the spirit world aren't ghosts. They are highly intelligent. They can bring things forward for you. You know, a lot of the time when you see a spirit, you've got to remember the purpose of seeing a spirit. It's a life lived. It will come to you in evidential purposes, not because it's got nothing better to do. But if you, for example, are a paranormal investigator and you are going into a haunted, using our terminology, because we all know the word and terminology haunt is there to incite fear. The spirit world don't haunt places. They're already with you. Therefore, if you go with the premise of going into a haunted location and you like the idea notion of there being trapped spirits, then the spirit world will imitate that for you. If you are going there with the intent and purpose of bringing forward evidence and clarity from the afterlife, if you have a strong connection to the spirit world, guess what? I can walk into any building and prove of the afterlife. It doesn't need to be a haunted building. For the videoing, I like it to be an interesting place. It's not because I know that the spirit world will only go to specific parts of a building. It's because it's more for the aesthetic look. If you go to a castle, it's nice on the eyes for the viewers. Also, does it mean that a castle is going to be more active than a home around the corner? Of course it doesn't. I could walk into a house and make that, have paranormal activity occurring in there. It's not because I'm special, it's not because I'm gifted, it's because of the understanding I have. The spirit world will work with me. They're omnipresent, like the air that we breathe. An abundance of scientific equipment can prove of the energy realm's existence. So yeah.
It's a little bit crazy, but it's true. And more importantly, it's not uncommon for pet owners that pass on to come back to visit their pets here in this world. For example, I was recently...
Yeah, and that's one of the things you've got to remember, right? What Matt's talking about there is a life lived, the soul. For example, let's just talk about the soul for a second, right? To give a better explanation for it. The soul, we can refer it to Scarlet. Scarlet's my little trusty crystal ball. Now, this soul has multiple lives lived. The soul is you. It's who you... The conditioning that you've had in the materialistic world is who you've become in this life. However, the soul is energy. It's conscious and aware of all of the lives that you have lived. Therefore, for example, if I was wanting to work with somebody from World War One, going back even earlier, the soul will come to me in energy form, and it will show me a life lived that is relevant for that spirit communication to take place. The soul isn't going to show me something that's completely irrelevant. For example, you know, if I'm doing a paranormal investigation and I've went to somewhere where there has been a battleground, and the spirit will know that I want to work with souls that took part in that battleground, then the soul's not going to send me cavemen. It's not going to send us images of something that's completely irrelevant. And this is where mediums sometimes get it wrong. They'll say that happens. They'll say that they don't get to choose the energy that comes through. You as a medium have to dictate to energy who you want to communicate with. When you're using devices like divination devices for likes of Ouija board sessions and stuff, it's a little bit different. You are literally working with the realms, very different to spirit. So you should only use them with a good understanding. But you as the medium, you are the conduit. You can, if you ask questions, get the information that you need in any given moment.
Recently doing a reading where this woman, had lost her husband. And after her husband had passed away, her dog at random times would go over to her husband's chair where her husband used to sit and bark like crazy. And then she would see the dog, roaming around the house, and it looked like the dog was following something.
And that's because we've got multiple things taking place there. So in this scenario, let's just go for the hypothetical scenario of working mediumistically. The dog can see its owner. Is that because the owner doesn't know that they're deceased? It's not a case of that. Comfort and healing from the spirit world comes to help grieving people. Now, animals still grieve too. Therefore, the owner of the pet will come to them. It will try to make it easier, the transition from the materialistic, because once you go from the materialistic into spirit, it's instant. The problems that we leave behind are not with us. It's with our loved ones, our family who are grieving, who are suffering. Therefore, it's logical sense for a spirit to come forward and to comfort that dog, to allow it to feel its energy. However, it can be very creepy for a lot of people when you see this happening. You see the dog roaming around, following every instinct. You've also got another part of it. Let's not just go straight down the mediumistic side. Yeah. We've also got another part to the animal of routine. If the animal isn't using its clairvoyant abilities, could this just be a repeat of what it is used to? You've got to ask yourself the questions on both sides. I know we're thinking about this in a mediumistic capacity, and everyone wants it to be mediumistic, but sometimes the animal will be in that much of a routine, and it's pining, it wants its owner to be there, so it's trying to imitate the things it done whilst the owner was alive, where it would get a reward, it would get a treat. So it's going through the processes. A lot of mankind do that as well. It's not just animals. A lot of mankind will, want and hope and pray to see somebody, their loved one, sat at the bottom of the bed. How many of you, right, and I would love to know, how many of you have actually had this, because this is a reoccurring theme that I hear a lot, where you will see a loved one sat on the bottom of your bed several days after their passing. That's not because you're wanting that to happen, so you're manifesting it. This is actual spirit communication taking place. It's a visitation from the spirit world. But it would be interesting to know how many of you have experienced that, because the amount of people that I've spoken to that have said it's happened to them, it's uncanny. It really is. And the spirit world are highly intelligent, so I know for a fine fact they do that for a reason.
And then next thing you know, the dog would go to the door and bark at the door, and then go over to the leash and bark at the leash. And she had no idea what was going on until she sat with me for a reading. And you know what the first thing her husband said? Her husband said, he wanted her to know that he came back to check up on the dog. And right away she said,
and the spirit will do come back to check up for each and every one of you, right? When we're thinking about the spirit world, a lot of you have been conditioned to believe that when you leave the materialistic flesh and you return back in energy, you don't have anything to do with the world no more. That's it. That's simply untrue. There are places on this earth plane where you will become very fond of. There will be places where you really enjoy to be, where you enjoy to go. Therefore, when you are in spirit, you can revisit these locations. For example, you might want to go and revisit your wife. You might want to go and let her know. Because remember, after all, as part of the grieving process, the spirit world's obligation is to try and help you heal. It's not a written obligation, but think about it realistically in a humanistic sense. They want what is best for you. Therefore, the sooner they can get you to heal, the quicker that they can help you to overcome some of the emotional turbulence that you are going through. It makes sense for them to come and visit you. Not every minute, not every second of every day. Like I said this a while back, right? And people were like, does that mean that the spirit world are going to come and watch us on the toilet? Does that mean the spirit world are watching us at most intimate moments, Jordan? And it's, of course they're not. They wouldn't do that in the materialistic, so why would they do that in spirit? It's not about spying on you. It's not about helping you to make the correct decisions. It's about them being along your side whilst you make some of the tough calls that you're going to make. A lot of you will be like, well, hang on a minute, Jordan. Are you telling my spirit guides, my spirit team, don't give me the correct answers all the time? What I'm saying is you are a human being. You are living out your earthly existence. This is the challenge for you. This is the playground where you are going to go through all of these different emotions, all of these different situations where the spirit world will watch how you react. They're not there to wipe your backside. They're not there to make this easy for you. Could you imagine if it was, and they did do that, Can you imagine how many lottery winners would have? Can you imagine how many people wouldn't need to spiritually grow, wouldn't need to do anything at all in this life that is worth anything, because they would already have all of the answers that we need? It doesn't work like that. The spirit world are very crafty, and they will come and watch you. They will come and help you. For example, if each and every one of you are going through a troubling time, don't think for 1 minute that the spirit world aren't already helping you. They've been helping you from day one. Yes, there are some times when you wish the spirit world could intervene and they could do more things to help you as a person, mentally, emotional, and physically. But what you don't see is behind the scenes, they are always getting you signs. They are always giving you synchronicities, angelic numbers, many different forms of communication with you. But often we have our blinkers on, like a horse. We're just looking straight forward in life. We are dealing with everything face on. Therefore, it's very difficult to be able to decode some of the signs and symbology that the spirit world are sending.
They're freaking out, and like it's like all of a sudden, the puzzle pieces fit together, and she was like, "Oh my God, Matt, I know exactly what you're talking about." She says, "It's been crazy." She says, the dog has been barking, and he's been barking at the chair, and she was telling me all of these different things, and I had to explain to her that yes, pets can see spirits too.
And one of the things with pets seeing spirits, a lot of people ask me this question: do pets return in energy also? 100%. Your animals, your loved ones, your pets all return in energy also. Anything that has a beating heart, anything that is a living organism goes back into energy, my friends. Whilst it gets a bit murky with coming back, for example, a lot of people believe that you can come back as a caterpillar, you can come back as a grain of rice, you can come back as, well, many different things, a horse, a dog. The spirit world can come through and influence animals as a sign. And this is where people believe reincarnation, you as a human being live out your earthly existence, but then as you go back into energy and then return back to planet Earth, you're going to come back as a ladybug or an ant or something, so you can experience that cycle. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If you are a human being, you will come back as a human being. Yes, you may be male or female sex, but you are coming back as a human being. Animals will come back as animals. Many different species of animals. You can't be a human and come back as a dog. It doesn't work. And I know it's, again, that's my opinion based on the notions that I have. And if you do believe that you're going to come back as a caterpillar or a ladybug, please don't let it spoil that dream that you have. But I can only tell it how it is. A human will just come back as a human. An animal will come back as an animal. It gets so murky. We have so many wants, needs, and desires as human beings to be able to fulfill many different facets of who you are. It would be awesome coming back as a penguin. I'd love to come back as a dolphin or something like that, or even a monkey. The problem is that isn't the reality of the world that we're going to be living in.
And young children can also see spirit. And I got to tell you, this is a telltale sign, because recently I actually had somebody reach out to me on Facebook who was really concerned. They shared a video with me, and their baby that was just born was in the bassinet in the nursery, and all of a sudden they were woken up by the baby monitor. And
a lot of you, right? I get contacted by a lot of people who are experiencing paranormal activity in their homes, and they're wanting help because the baby can be seen on a monitor. Because a lot of these monitors now, they're not just audible, you can get them with cameras built in. And somebody once sent me footage, and it was effectively the baby stood up in its cot, and then it was looking out, and it was watching this white orb come into the room, and then it went back out. And the family were absolutely distraught. They were terrified. They didn't know what was going on. And it turned out it was actually the grandma. It was a beautiful story, and I mean, I'm not going to share it on here because I don't have the permission to. My readings are for the individuals. Anyone who I do share parts of their reading because I think it's beautiful, I ask them permission first. I'm not about entertainment. I'm not about putting people's worlds into the public atmosphere just to make a spectacle of them. Sometimes I will use stories if I've got permission, express permission beforehand. But that was a story where I thought was fascinating, because here we have a family who are terrified because of what they've seen. But then as it transpired, and as they come for a reading, and as I explained to them what was happening, not only did it put their mind at ease, it made complete logical sense to them. And the world then welcomed it, and it just goes to show each and every one of you, right? When you have an understanding of something, it gives you the ability to see it in a different light. We don't fear it. We don't want it to go away. We can embrace it for what it is. And children are at the forefront of that. There are many children who will see the spirit world freely. There are many children who use every one of their clair abilities, every one of their extrasensory perceptions. They will use them from being very, very young. But as they grow old, well, I say old, past the age of 6, that's when they begin to suppress them, because they don't want to look weird in the society that we live. Even at that young age, when you go up to somebody, right, and you say, oh, I can see dead people. First of all, you get the jokes come out. Then next, you get people looking at you funny. So I get it why people don't want to openly speak about it. I get it why children would naturally suppress their amazing abilities through not wanting to stand out in society, not wanting to look the odd one. I get it. I really do.
And they heard this little baby laughing and giggling and pointing and gesturing to things. And they were like, what's going on? So it was like 3 a.m, okay?
By the way, a lot of you will get woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. The witching hour, that's when the veil's finished and the spirit will can come through. It's not. It's literally, I've proven time and time again that it doesn't make a difference what time it is. However, one thing Spirit are saying is, they're asking us to address this, right? If you wake up randomly at 3 o'clock in the morning, is that a sign that the spirit world are with you? It could be, 100%. If it is continuous that you are waking up at that time, that is more of getting your attention. It's making you and bringing you aware to something that's going wrong in your world. That could be through spirit, or that could be through your body clock. Perhaps you are going through a lot of stress, and your brain, as it does a very good job keeping you alive, it has to dump things. It has to reset itself. Therefore, sometimes you may wake up on the dot at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I mean, how many of you, right? And before anyone says, oh, that doesn't happen, Jordan, that's absolutely ludicrous. I go to sleep at night, right? And I don't even need to set an alarm. And I wake up ready in time for work. Before anyone says that's not the spirit world, that's my body has adapted to that time. It knows it needs to be up at that time. I've always worked 7 till 7 for the entirety of my adult working life. I've been really lucky. Therefore, I don't even need to set an alarm, and I'll just wake up. Therefore, it makes logical sense that the brain can also do that. If you are having struggles, you are going through a very difficult phase of your life, your brain is struggling to make sense of situations. Therefore, you could wake up bang on the dot at 3 o'clock, bang on 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So with that human part of it out of the way, let's come back over to spirit. Spirit worlds can wake you up, and they do wake you up. 100%. When you have visitations, the spirit world will wake you up. Many a times, especially when I was going through my development at the very, very beginning, there'd be many times I'd wake up and see people in my room, or I'd have experiences. I actually had an amazing experience when I had lost my dog, which is fitting actually. We're talking about animals, so why don't we mention it? But I had a dog, and each and every one of you, right, you've all got animals, or you might know someone with animals, and they become part of the family. It's not just a dog. It's not just a cat. It's yours. You love it. You adore it. It becomes everything that you are as a person. And I had, when I was with me ex, we had 2 dogs, one called Damien and one called Chester. Now, when we split up, as things happen, as circumstances change, I could no longer keep Damien. Damien was, even though I loved both of the dogs, Damien was like mine. I literally reared him from being a puppy. Like, something had happened and I had gotten him for 2. I didn't know this at the time, but the seller had actually given him for, I think they were trying to make quick cash. So I had actually bought Damien under good pretenses, and I didn't realise he was far too young, like, to be taken away from the mother. And I think it happens when I looked into it, like, it happens all the time. And I was quite naive. I didn't understand all of these different things that sellers would do. I just took them at face value and thought, oh, well, I want them. It come very apparent very quick that he was very weak. All of these different things. So I was going back and forwards to the vets, and we were getting special diets for him to build him up. And anyway, because of that, he was like me second little son. I've already got a son, but he was like my second son. And wherever I went, he would follow behind. Bearing in mind, he was also a mixture between a Rottweiler and a Staffordshire. Like, so a weird mix. And don't ask us how all of that happened. I honestly couldn't tell you, but it was a weird mix. He looked evil. Like, seriously, I loved him, right? But to anyone who didn't know him, you would look and go, that dog is menacing. The amount of times, right, because he actually had a Rottweiler build, but a staffy face. So if you imagine how bulky and the stature and posture of a Rottweiler, but then imagine it all black with a Rottweiler face. He looked menacing, I'm not going to lie. Like, he looked terrifying to anyone who didn't know him. To me, I'd be like play fighting with him, and like rolling around the floor, and he'd be growling and all of these different things. But then he would just stop and command, he would have fun. To anyone else, they were terrified even looking at him. So, it just so happened, obviously, we're split up, and I didn't get to see him. But Spirit had said, right, that he didn't have long left. And the way I had seen it there was just an instinct that come over. I knew there was something not right with him. And bearing in mind, I hadn't seen him for a long, long time. I think I must have left his world at about the age of 4. And for those of you who are like, oh my God, you're such a cold person, the circumstances wouldn't allow us to be able to see him. It was just kind of the way everything happened. The person that he was then living with, I didn't have any communication with them, so I couldn't see him. And I thought, to be quite fair, right, it was better that way. Sometimes you've got to make difficult decisions, because I couldn't be in his world. It wasn't fair, him like seeing me and getting all of them emotions and, oh, I'm getting to see him again, and then me just coming back out of his world. Sometimes you've got to do what is right for everyone. So I took it upon myself, as hard as it was at the time, in even going forward. I knew I would see him again when he was in spirit. So anyway, I knew his time was coming to an end. And I had said to Spirit, when the time's right, let him know. It's quite hard to talk about. But I said, let him know he can come back into my world. So I knew, Spirit, I knew that when the time was right, I would be seeing him again. So again, the point of the story. Nighttime. Yeah. He was always a big dog, as I've explained. But he always thought he was a small dog. Like, straight, honestly, right? He had the size, the bulk, the build. Massive dog. A beautiful, splendid, like, creature. As much as he's multiple different breeds, he was beautiful. But he always imagined himself being small. Like, literally, he would always, even though the size of him, right, I'd be lying on the sofa or on the couch, and he would just run in, and he would just lie in between my legs, and he would just drop his chin, and then he'd just lie there looking at us like that. That's what he would do. And he would just let us stroke his head, and then he would go to sleep. And, normally he would be like rolling around, making us uncomfortable, and now he's comfortable. He's lying on his back, snoring away there while I'm trying to watch a movie. The typical traits. Well, anyway, this night, I had seen, I had like a vision. I had seen him going into what looked to be white light on one of these a night when I was dreaming. And in the dream, it was so strange, because I seen, effectively, if you imagine, just everything was white, but through the whiteness, a door opened and you could see colours at the other side. And I seen Damien just running up to this door. He went straight through. So I knew straight away that, obviously he had passed, which was good for me, to be honest with you, right? Because I knew I was going to get to see him again. So I had a word with Spirit, and I says, look, let him know when he's settled, when he wants to come and see us, he's more than welcome to come and see us. So the next night, right, I'd completely forgot that I had said it. I completely forgot that I'd even spoken to him. But I was obviously asleep, and then I woke up. But you know when you're like in half a daydream, you're in a state of kind of not knowing if you're awake, a lot of you do that. I just woke up through the night, and I could feel like something coming up my legs. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's freaky, Jordan. But I was familiar with the pressure. I was familiar with the weight. It was 100% Damien. And I was like, this can't be happening. Like, this is here. And I could feel him, like, licking my chin. And then just to top it off, right? Because a lot of you be like, well, maybe you are dreaming. Maybe you are manifesting that. Maybe you are wanting that to happen, which I would totally agree with you, of course. I had asked for it and it would have been nice. Therefore, who wouldn't want that to happen? But the next minute, the pressure was relieved from my legs. And then the bedside cabinet next to my bed, all of the bottles got knocked off. So he had jumped off the bed, hit the cabinet and knocked everything off. And that was just typical of him. It was, even now, he was a little bulldozer in spirit, Thought he was a small dog, didn't understand how to gauge his body. I mean, I remember, right, he would just run into doors and that. He was so big. He thought he was like that big and he would just charge past people. He was a nightmare taken for walks because he would literally just barge past people. I think he thought he was like really small so he could get past them. He wouldn't do it intentionally to harm them. But the amount of times he would just walk past people and just knock them clean over, it was absolutely unreal. I remember my son, when he was really little, he would even sit on his back and he would just charge up and down the garden with him on it. He loved it. He was absolutely class. But yeah, that was my little story anyway. I hope I haven't bored you too much.
They pull out the baby monitor and they put on their glasses to take a little bit of a deeper look. And on the baby monitor, they saw all of these orbs that were flying around this child.
One thing that we've got to kind of mention there with what Matt just mentioned. What are orbs? Because a lot of mediums speak about orbs, and you'll hear me referring to it. An orb is essentially the soul, right? But the difference is when you see the orb, even energy needs a mode of transportation. As it comes from the spirit world into the materialistic world, it will take the shape of a circle. The orb contains many lives lived. So in that moment, it was paramount for the orb to come through and to reveal itself. What we can't do, though, is what a lot of people unfortunately do, and they believe everything that they see is an orb. A lot of the time, like sort of mobile devices, equipment that really is good quality, but it's got many different functions to the way that it will see within the light spectrum. It will pick up orbs, dust particles, and it will look like orbs. 100% it looks like it. You can often tell an orb, though, in the way that it moves. I can see an orb straight away, and I know if it's spirit. There's an intelligence to it. I once done a video in my bedroom, actually, right? And I was just proving to you how intelligent the spirit world are. And I was lying on my bed and I put my finger up in the air and it was complete darkness. So you can all try this if you want. Go into a complete dark room and all you're going to do is you're going to put the light on your phone and you're just going to record. And you will see some motes of dust. It doesn't matter how clean of a person you are. It doesn't matter how clean your home is. In case anyone thinks I'm saying you're dirty people. It's not. It's just a case of dust particles are minute. I have like a special system in my room, right? Because I suffer from allergens and hay fever and all of these different things. Therefore, I've got like a special air purifier. And even with that on at 100%, right, you will still sometimes see little dust particles if you look through your phone. A lot less now, granted. But when you're looking through your phone, right, what I would recommend each and every one of you to do is pay attention to the particles, because they'll look like circles, they look like orbs. But what I done was very intelligently, the way the spirit world taught us to do it, is to hold your finger out and to record your finger. And what you're going to do is the very, very top, you're going to ask the spirit world to move towards it. Then, guess what will happen? You'll see it on the video that I put out, the short. You'll see orbs coming to your finger and moving away. That there is intelligence. That there isn't specks of dust just randomly floating around in the airflow. When you can intelligently say to the spirit world, can you go to the top of my finger? Can you leave my finger now? Can you go back in to frame? I want to see you again. Can you go to the left for yes? Can you go to the right for no? Another way of spirit communication. You can actually talk to them like that. Actually, a good little way they've just told us that I had never even thought of that. A lot of the time I learn things as you learn it, but what a great little method when you know that you have an orb that is working intelligently with you and you can prove. Why wouldn't you ask yes and no questions? What an absolute awesome idea. I'm buzzing about that. That's class. We'll have to make a special video just on that.
And they were so spooked. They like went into the room. They saw the baby like motioning and like, looking at people that weren't there. And right away they thought that it was something evil. So of course they reached out to me on Facebook and I had to like calm down the parents. And I was like, listen, no, it's not what you think. Like this isn't.
And ask yourself the question, right? If that happened to you, would you think it was evil? The honest answer is yes, 100%. And that's why we need people like Matt, myself, and each and every one of you who want to help mankind. We need to give them an understanding that serves them. Whilst I know I have a difference in opinion on a lot of things to Matt, we can all still help you in our own ways. People will naturally be drawn to Matt, right? This is something that always happens, and a lot of people are like, it's a coincidence, but it's not the way that the spirit will work. They don't do coincidences. Everything is sculpted. Therefore, there will be people who find my channel that go, wow, this is what I've been looking for. Your video just popped up on my screen. And guess what, Jordan? Like, it's everything that I needed to know. Go in the comment section and you'll see it. There will be people who find Matt's channel who like inside with Matt's ideologies. It's not because Matt's better than anyone or I'm better because of my views. It's because the spirit world need as many people as they can to be able to help as many human beings as they can. Therefore, Matt's going to have a lot of skills and traits that a lot of you might like. For example, protecting and all of these different things. Values that I don't share. However, that doesn't mean to say Matt's right or I'm right. It just means the spirit world will go, right, Gina likes protecting. She's always going to protect. Why don't we send her to Matt? Straight to Matt. Okay, so we have John here. John doesn't like the idea of protection. However, we know that Jordan will help people who doesn't want to protect. Send them to Jordan. And that's the way that spirit will work. The more videos that we have on the internet, on YouTube, on all social media, the spirit will have more access. It's like a library to them. They use different mediums to be able to portray part of their message. Again, coming back to the analogy, if I'm the best person to help Sue, spirit will bring Sue to me. If Dave likes Matt and will learn more from Matt, guess what's going to happen? Spirit are going to send Dave to Matt. It's a fascinating how they work.
Is it something like out of a...
That's why these videos are so important. It's not about pulling each other down. It's not about making people think that Matt's wrong or I'm right or I'm wrong and Matt's right. It's about showing you that there are differences in opinions in mediumship which will help you to become unique, help you to be able to become the best medium that you could potentially be. When Spirit mentioned this series, I was like, well, I don't know how it's going to sit. I don't know if people are going to enjoy it. I don't know if it's the right thing for me. And I've always took the lead. I've always trusted them with what they've said. In the first video, I think it was about two hours long, and it's probably the best performing video that I've had on the channel. It's really done very good, and I can see why. I can see the appeal, because it's not about tarnishing someone. It's about helping you to see from their experiences, from my experiences, how you can make your own. It's beautiful. It's magical. It's almost poetical, actually.
A horror movie. I want you guys to all know this one thing. When your loved ones go to the other side, they're still invested in your life. And, they love to see the milestones that you achieve in your life here and now.
And Matt's 100% completely correct. Fully agree. The spirit world, a lot of you believe that the spirit world are billions and billions and billions of light years away in heaven, or the quadrillion light years away in hell. The reality of it is we as human beings live out our earthly existences confined within energy. Energy is all around us. Your loved ones right now, don't think of them as being in heaven. Don't think of them as being in hell. Think of them being watching this video with you now. They are by your side. They're like, listen to the kid. He might look crazy. He might sound crazy, but he's telling you what you need to hear in this moment. You've been led to this video right now in this second of this moment. And remember, if you do love the spirit world like I do, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. But each and every one of you, right, the spirit world will help you in very different ways. But know this, they're always with you. Every beat of your heart, with each and every second and milestone that you overcome, they are by your side, chaperoning you through some of the most difficult times that you will face as a human being.
Especially when a child is born. You know, when a child is born here in this world, think about it. Friends, family members, extended family, they all come rushing over the house. They all want to.
And with what Matt just said there brings up a very valid point, right? A lot of you see the spirit world as being members of your family that you've lost in this world. Believe me when I say this, my friends, your families are much greater, much bigger. When you come to planet Earth, you're effectively alone. And whilst obviously you do have family around you, some of you will have loving family, some of you might not have as loving family. But either way, you come here as a raw soul to go through the emotional roller coaster, which is life. And you determine that the spirit world, when you go back, you're going to see your Auntie Viri, you're going to see your Granda Frank. But what you don't realise is the magnitude of what you are, the energy that you are part of, it's much greater. Effectively, the way spirit showed me, it's like when you are in this life, you dropped in and you're kind of alone. That's technically not true for a lot of you because you come down here in clicks. And I'm not for 1 minute saying that you don't have soul partners and all this. Whilst I don't believe in the terminology of there being soul partners, people on a soul level will connect 100%. But to a lot of you, you shouldn't look at yourself as being part of a clique or coming down here as part of a group. You're left here to fend for yourself, effectively, emotionally, mentally, physically, all of these different things you cultivate when you are on this planet. You don't come here with any prior understandings of the life that you are going to live. You didn't choose this life. A lot of people believe that you choose this life. Ask yourself the question, would you have chose what you've been through? And if you are somebody who's like, well, of course I wouldn't, that's because that's your intuition telling you. What mankind tell you most of the times are smoke screens, because what they'll do is they'll say, you chose this life. But for a small fee, I can manipulate the tapestry which you have foreseen in your upcoming years. I can help to manifest the vision that you wanted it to always be. Because unfortunately, when you tick the little boxes, you didn't look properly. You didn't look at the fine print when you were in heaven. Therefore, if you pay me money, guess what? I can change it for you. That's the reality of the world that we're living in. A lot of people profiteering on, unfortunately, some of the harsh realities that you are going through, some of the misery that you are enduring. That's the reason why I don't believe that we picked this life at all.
Hold the baby. They all want to bring gifts to the baby. They all want to see that child that was first born. Well, they're not just the only ones. Those in spirit also come by to check up on that baby as well. So when
100%. Of course. I mean, we've just had Matt's beautiful story there about how the spirit, how the child could see spirit. I also had one friend, right, who actually told us a story about how when they were younger, they would often go like into graveyards. Bear in mind, they were only about 5-year-old, so don't think they were on their own going into graveyards. And obviously with the parents, and the parent was actually telling us that one day she looked round and she couldn't see the child anyway. But for days and days and days, the child had been talking about a boy called Bill. And the parent had said, like, it was just an imaginary friend. It was a phase they were going through. Well, this one day, she had took her down to the park. And she turned her back and she was gone. So she freaked out, she panicked. She was like, where the hell's my child? I know, it's one of those things. But before everyone judges saying bad parent, you know, these things sometimes do happen when kids are very, very active. And what happened was next is she found the child at a graveyard. It's 2 seconds away. They could actually see the graveyard, right? And there was a headstone. What do you think the name was on the headstone? Have a guess. It was the little boy that she had been talking about. It even said on there his age of passing. I think it was like 7 or something like that. I can't remember the ins and outs. But she had been communicating with the spirit of the boy, and the boy had led her to his grave where he was for validation, to show the parent that, look, she isn't going crazy, she's talking to me. Obviously, naturally, the mother freaked out a little bit and thought, oh, let's keep you away from graveyards. your imaginary friends needs to disappear, don't you? Like that, with cleanses and rituals and gongs and sprays of protection and all of these different things. Which, in all fairness, all joking aside, right, that's the natural go-to. Anything in this life that we fear, anything that we don't fully understand or comprehend, the first thing we go to is what can we throw at it? What solution is there? And mankind are very wise to this. Mankind are very understanding the fact that we have flaws as a human being. We have wants, needs, and desires to always have the answers, but sometimes, unfortunately, we don't. Therefore, mankind see, I'm sure that's a Pokemon actually, Mankey, never mind, if for any of you that don't watch Pokemon. Mankind see an opportunity, a window to be able to manipulate and to gain financially out of individuals who need protection. And that's why I'm an open advocate for you should never protect from the spirit world or the realms. The realms are a little bit different to spirit. You have to protect from poor understandings of bad teachings. A good understanding supersedes the notion of protection. If you have a good understanding, my friends, you will never, ever, ever fear the spirit world. You've seen some of the stuff I do. You've seen some of the paranormal videos, and if you haven't, shame on you. Go and watch them. But I go into locations that are renowned for attacks on mankind. They are renowned for all of these scary spirits and entities and energies and demons and all of these different things. And I go in there smiling. I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I have such a fun time. It's not because I'm possessed. It's because I have a good understanding. A good understanding is an understanding that serves you.
I was tuning into that picture, when I was tuning into that video, I could clearly tell that there was a mom and a dad that were there in spirit that were visiting this child from the afterlife. To which, luckily the family confirmed, and it really helped to calm them down.
Each and every one of you as well, I forgot to say at the beginning of this, don't forget to go subscribe over to Matt. Matt and Tyler are my favouriteest mediums from America. Like, I'm very skeptical when it comes to mediums who do this for entertainment. But it's undeniable the connection that Matt and Tyler both share. I know that's open to debate because it doesn't matter how good of a person you are, right? There's always somebody that wants what you have. There's always somebody that's going to want to pull you down. That's unfortunately, that's just mankind.
Because they were completely stressed out thinking that something was wrong. Well, listen, what I want you guys to know is that, this is actually how psychic mediums become psychic mediums. You guys might not remember this, but we're all born seeing and hearing the departed.
See, what have I just been saying? I can't agree with Matt more. In fact, it's almost harmonious that there is another living being who understands this. We are all born mediums, psychics. We all have those extrasensory perceptions and clair abilities that we speak of. It's not a case of me selling you a course to become a medium, me giving you this special cloak to become a medium, and by you buying into the ideology that you have to be chosen, gifted, and anointed from the spirit world. It's not a gift. You are born with it, my friends.
When we're 1, 2, sometimes...
Can we get a little bit of a high five for Matt? You know what I mean?
3 years old, we see those in spirit. Those in spirit come to check up on us. Remember, because we actually start as souls in heaven, and then we're born here in this world. So, when we're first born, our connection with heaven is so strong because we just came from there.
And that's one thing to point out, right? Your soul is always connected to energy. Your soul, we mentioned it at the beginning of this, how the soul works. It's actually, right, the spirit world don't like us referring to the soul in this respect, right? But what you can do is you can effectively think of the soul being imprisoned. It's imprisoned within a force field that radiates from the beating heart. It's called the auric field. That is the low frequency energy that radiates from the beating heart. It keeps everything in combat within the human flesh. The second that you no longer have the auric field, then your soul, the snitch I call it, can't wait to get back and tell tales. I can't wait to get back and tell all of the things it's been, because for the entirety of its existence, right, being in your vessel. It's like that with its little hands. Think of a little hand reaching from this to the spirit world, and it's just touching the loved one's hands. But the problem is the flesh suit it's been imprisoned in isn't allowing the connection to take place. It isn't allowing them to, when you've done something wrong as a kid, and there's always that of a sibling that wants to tell, can't wait to tell on you, just wants to get you into trouble. Well, that's what the soul's like. The soul's like, I can't wait to tell you this, I can't wait to tell you this. Even though your loved ones are already watching and they already know what you're doing anyway, right? But that's the mentality of a soul. If you could think of it in a human respect, that is what the soul is like. The soul's like, I can't wait, I'm going to tell on you, I can't wait to connect. But the spirit worlds are like just watching from behind the scenes. Like, we know what is happening here. So a little bit of an explanation for you as a reference point. I like to try and think of familiarities to the world that we're living in and try to break down some of the analogies so you can see why I call the soul a snitch. Because that's effectively what it is. The spirit world don't like us saying that it's imprisoned within the auric field, but it's the only reference point I can kind of give to show you.
Our soul was in heaven and then came down here in this world. And that's why babies don't have any filter. But over time, as that child, gets older, right after the ages of 3, most children don't see those in spirit anymore.
I would say, I get where Matt's going with that, but I would say around about 5 to 6 year old. I think after 3, you still kind of are seeing spirit. You might become less aware of it, but you still have the tendencies to see the spirit world. I would say personally, social conditioning comes in at its worst when you are round about 5 to 6 year old. But again, that's just a difference of opinion. I fully agree with what Matt's saying.
Most children lose that sight, but the few that hang on to it are those that are known as psychic kids. And that's where actually psychic kids come from.
And a lot of psychic kids, the reason why they become psychic, the reason why they continue using, let's have 2 different scenarios here so we can understand the concept of a psychic kid. You have little John, who is experiencing paranormal activity. John is 6 year old. You also have Mary, who is of the same age, lives in the same area, everything's identical. But Mary has a family who is in support of her seeing spirits, hearing spirits, speaking to spirits. So Mary's going to become a psychic child. Mary is welcome and embracing the humanistic abilities that she has. She is not suppressing them. She is going to do exceptionally well. You then have, on the other hand, the child who is brought up in a family that has no understanding, no reference point for what is happening. Therefore, in the first instance, is that child going to receive support for the abilities that they are bringing forward? The evidence? No, the family are going to be freaked the hell out. Therefore, no longer, even though both kids are psychic, one child is going to start forcibly suppressing their abilities because they don't want to speak of it. They don't want to be that child. However, the child who's been allowed to embrace it and to walk the path and to be able to embrace it with open arms, who do you think is going to come out best? It's not because one child is better. They're both exactly the same. They're both children. Sorry, everyone, I've got an itchy nose. They're both exactly the same. But out of the 2, one has had a head start because they have been helped by their family. A lot of the time it's sad when children who are experiencing paranormal activity, they are seeing the spirit world, they're having all of these different, they can't talk about it. I was one of them children. And that's why I vowed that there'll be no other children, there'll be no other child who'll be lost for information. Because anyone, any parent, anyone who is struggling with any aspect of mediumship, paranormal activity, anything, they can find my channel, the spirit world will lead them to me, and they will start to gain a good understanding. You'll see in the coming years, the message of Help Heal Serve will become massive. Not just small, there'll be many people all around the world following this ideology.
And I too was one of those kids, being just 3, 4, 5 years old, I was seeing the departed in and out of my room like that little boy from The Sixth Sense. But I got to let you know one thing. I learned so much about how to know when those in spirit are with us and around us.
And I would say for Matt, right, and I can't speak on behalf of Matt, right, but I would guess, I'm almost certain in the before video that we watched on him, he had a supporting network of family around him. Therefore, when he was seeing things and he was experiencing things, this would have been welcomed in the household. It would have been a case of good job. He would have been rewarded for the abilities that he was using. Therefore, for Matt, he would have very quickly developed the rest of his Clair abilities because he's not shutting them down. He's effectively being able to wear it with pride. He's not ashamed. He's not afraid of people laughing at him because he has family around him who fully understands and they have went through the same. However, coming back to the example of someone like myself, polar opposite to Matt, I come up with not having any influence from anyone else. I had no support networks. I had nowhere I could turn. I felt like an outcast. I felt like I was a laughingstock. I felt like I was not ashamed, but I felt like there was something medically wrong with his. Even though I can bring forward evidence of the afterlife, I mean, do you know how mad it is to be at somebody's house party and to tell somebody who's just lost the great grandma everything about their grandma, and normally bringing it up in conversation to the point they're crying and tears in front of us, and I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, and they were like, no, it's beautiful. Like, I'm thanking you for doing it, but how you just done that? And I didn't fully understand any of my abilities. I had to craft them, you know. And I think that's where it makes mediumship better when you understand that you have people on both sides of the spectrum who can still make it. You're going to have a lot of people like myself who have no support, had no support. You've got Help Heal Serve now, there's no excuse. But you've got people who have had loads of support who can become a medium, and you've got people who haven't had any support that can still become authentic mediums. Each and every one of you don't have an excuse. You've got two polar opposite, and I think that's why it's very good that we've done it with Matt, right? You've got two very polar opposites. Whilst you could say, well, actually, Matt's a lot more successful than you, John. You could say that. But in terms of evidence, in terms of clarity, evidence is evidence. You know, whilst I might not have all of the lights, the fame, I wasn't brought up around that. I never want that. I never want to be in the spotlight. I never want. Mediumship to me is special. It's magical. It's heartwarming. And for me, I will never, ever turn to mediumship being entertainment, because I think that's where mediumship's gone wrong. Personally, not that Matt's doing. Matt does a great job. But I think a lot of people now are self-acclaimed mediums, and they're taken to places like TikTok and all of these different places, and they're certifying themselves with no quality control as being a medium, and then they're going out and they're charging people £5 and £10, and they're not even giving evidence. Listen, people should make money from it, but they should also make money from the evidence. If you can bring forward evidence of the afterlife, then you should be rewarded for your hard services. If you can't, stop scamming. And unfortunately, that's why mediumship has become such a laughingstock. That's why mankind have become so corrupt, because people have seen that as a window of opportunity to exploit mankind. It's not about the evidence. And listen, each and every one of you are to blame as well. And I mean that from the bottom of your heart. I don't mean that nastily, but we've become a society conditioned to believe that mediumship isn't about evidence. It's not about that. How many of you have had a reading and instead of saying, didn't make sense to me, I want my money back, how many of you have said, thank you, that was lovely? You won't go back to the person, but you haven't said anything about it. You haven't spoke your truth in those moments. Therefore, unfortunately, we have created this environment where mediums can perform and execute readings subpar, and it's become the expectance. The amount of time Spirit bring them out to people, right, and you see that people are doing like £5 readings and £10 readings, and you're watching it and you're like, oh my God. But people are still believing it. People are still buying into the ideology. And that's why we had such a fight on my hands when it come into changing the mindset. For me, it's not about giving you a reading. And a lot of you are like, oh, that's such a horrible thing to say. But that's because you've been conditioned by mankind to believe that people likes of me have to give you readings. For me, it's about giving you the tools so you can do readings for yourself. I could sit here all day long and join and conform to the stereotypical way of a medium operating. I could just sit here and make fortunes out of people, right? The problem is I'm here to reverse that process. I'm here to give you the blueprints so you can forge your own unique understanding of the spirit world. So instead of creating a dependency of people coming back, which is a cash cow system, it's very, very lucrative to mediums, I want to, for free, give each and every one of you the tools to be able to become a medium for yourself. If you don't want to become a medium for yourself and you don't want to put the hard work and time in, then don't waste my time. I say it all of the time. A lot of people think I'm harsh when I say that, but literally, don't waste your time. You don't have a lot of time to waste. None of us do. We don't know when our time is going to be up on this planet. Therefore, don't waste it doing things that don't serve you. If you want to become a medium and you want to put the hard work and effort in, then guess why? You found our channel.
Us, because they reach out in similar ways. They reach out the same way to a psychic medium as they do with you. And here's one of the things that happened when I was a kid. And I want to share with you some of the experiences that I went through. This was before I even knew that I was psychic, but when spirits first started visiting me, because you may have had a similar experience. And I got to tell you.
Well, we just mentioned my experience, my very, very, very first experience when I was 6 years old. So it's going to be interesting to hear Matt's to see if there's any similarities.
It would always happen when I was alone, when I was by myself, when I was playing with toys in my room, and when no one else was there. You know, the spirits would come and try to talk with me. And this is how they would do it. Literally, there were times where I'd be downstairs in the basement, you know, playing with toys, playing because I had a little playroom down there.
I mean, I do remember when I was a child, apparently, I can't vouch for this because, to be honest with you, since working with the spirit world, I don't remember what I do yesterday. Everything just seems to just go in one. My memory is absolutely atrocious. But when I was younger, apparently, I used to talk to spirits. I personally don't know. I can't say whether that was the case. It come from a reliable source.
I'd be all by myself, and all of a sudden, I'd be hearing someone say my name, Matthew, clear as day.
So that's clairaudience to a lot of you who are wanting to learn what the actual terminology mankind have used to associate to that experience.
And sometimes they were even aggressive voices. I remember like somebody going, Matthew, just like that, like I'm saying to you. And I remember like dropping what I was doing because sometimes I was afraid like that I was in trouble. And I ran upstairs thinking that it was my mom. And my mom was fast asleep on the couch and nobody was within the house. And there were other times where I'd be, you know, in my bedroom playing, I'd be hearing my name called.
I mean, it's a fascinating story. In terms of the similarities, I don't think for myself, right, it was ever a case of as active as this with Matt. For me, I literally seen spirit at the age of 6. And then I think because I got such a fright, the reason why spirit tell us, right, that I had to see them then, in that moment, and a lot of you may be, well, why did they come to see you if you weren't ready? Why didn't... It wasn't a case of I wasn't ready. I needed to see them at that point of my life. Because for the entirety of my adult existence, I've always seen spirit. Could you imagine how terrified I would be living in a world where I was seeing the dead on a daily basis, not knowing if they were going to harm us, not knowing if they wanted to do something nasty to us, all of these different things. Whereas when I first seen two spirits, and by the way, for any of you who are watching, right, the spirits who I very first seen were very, very close family members who I had never met before. I described them down to T. I still remember, right, what happened was I had never seen this photograph before. And after I had seen the two full body apparitions, I had ran through and I was crying my eyes out. And my biological mom says, oh, who was it? And I was like, well, it was just two people. And I described them down to a T and just showed us a picture. And you could have literally took the picture and put it there. They were in the same height, the same stance, posture. And I had never seen this picture before. And that's when, for me, I was like, wow, that was kind of fascinating, awesome, all the same, terrifying. But I think after that, right, they had come to let us know that, look, this would be a path at some point. We are watching. You are going to be safe. Don't worry about it. As you see spirit, you don't need to be scared. You don't need to be alarmed. And I've got to be completely open and honest with you, right? I've never once been... There's been a few times when I've seen spirit where I've been like, whoa, that was a bit freaky. Like, for example, a couple of me son, he's about now, he's coming up to 13 this year, well, this month. And I've never forced any of this on him at all. I don't think it's right. And whilst he could probably learn a lot from me, I don't think it's the right time. I think when the time's right, it'll probably be the time when I've departed the materialistic plane and he'll want to contact us. Then that's why I've backlogged this channel with everything he needs. And I know it's a sad way of looking at it, but at some point, when I leave this planet, he'll be able to contact me and he'll be able to go through all of the different videos and he'll be able to see, well, actually, my dad wasn't as crazy as I thought he was. But you've got to remember, like, if you've got people around you who don't believe in this sort of thing, then that influence is going to wash over you. You aren't allowed to accept it as being the beautiful and magnificent experience that it's ought to be. But he had always, like, he'd say something and then he'd have like a remark. I think deep down he knows that I could see spirit and I work with spirit because he knows me as a person. I don't like liars. I despise liars. I don't like anyone who would harm mankind or would do anything that would be deceitful. Therefore, I would be hating myself. So he knows the person I am, and anyone who ever meets me and comes into contact with me and speaks to me for 2 minutes of my time, you know the person I am instantly. I'm not about that way of life. So this one day, I had taken him into Newcastle city centre, and I always remember, right, something drew us to this part of the shopping complex. And for whatever reason it was, I just seen it as being old. Like in me third eye, I just pictured it being old using psychometry. And I was like, I've got to have a look at this place. And I started ascending these escalators, right? And I went on first, and I'm very protected over my son. It's a problem that I've got. I'm just very overprotective. I've got to kind of let him be a little bit older and more thingy, but I always see him as my little boy. So I was on the escalator and he got on behind me. And as we were going up, this little old lady, and I kid you not, if looks could kill, got on behind him. And I was just like looking. And I was like staring at her, staring at him. And she was like staring at me and she wasn't taking her eyes off us. And I was like, I don't like the vibe I'm getting off you. So I moved them from behind to in front. And at this point, she was like even closer now. I was just like, whoa, this is freaky. So I turned around anyway. I didn't think she was an imminent threat. And by the way, it wasn't a demon or anything like that, right? But what happened next was even more bizarre. We got to the top of the escalator. I could even feel that energy on behind us. And I was like, I'm not turning around. I was just like, I'm not turning around. Get to the top. We walks off the escalator. And I said to him, did you see that lady? What a lunatic. And he went, what lady, Dad? I was like, the one that was just behind me. And I could see the penny drop in his head. He realised why I had moved him from there to there. And he just went, Dad, you do see spirits. And he was laughing about it, but you could see he genuinely understood from that moment on that when I say I see something, I genuinely see it. And it's not an imagination. It's in that moment, the spirit would come forward in those moments, had to show me in that way for me to react in the way that I did to protect my son. Not because they were going to cause harm, but through that action in itself, my son now believes and now knows that his dad sees the spirit world. Because they knew it was kind of getting, it was like my son thinking that I was potentially lying or potentially trying to be the person that people talk about, because you're always going to have people who base opinions based on having no understanding. It's unfortunate. Mankind have the right to free will, and every person wants their opinion to be heard. Every person, it doesn't matter what experience if they have or what understanding, they've got to have their opinions heard. They are right. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you do, what you can prove. It's irrelevant in some people's worlds. So it was nice in that time for spirit to do what they've done, because now my son fully knows and understands and appreciates, whilst he might not want to be part of it, he now knows that there is such thing as the spirit world, because he's seen me reacting in the moment. He's seen us having to react to something I was seeing. So yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. I thought I'd just give you that one for free.
Matthew. I'd get up, I'd run in, I'd be sending to my mom, I'd be going, what? Because we're Italian, that's what we do. Go and see my mother. And all of a sudden, my mother would be like, why are you yelling? Why are you yelling my name? I'm like, Ma, you were just calling me. And she'd be like, no, I wasn't calling you. And then that's when my mom had a conversation with me.
A lot of you now, right, going off what Matt just said there, I know at least 10 people that would come on a video and explain that was happening to them? How many of you have went into a location and heard somebody shouting your name? You've went into a home and you've heard a loved one shouting your name, and you've went to see them and it wasn't them. This is the spirit world getting your attention, showing you that you have abilities such as clairaudience, claircognizance, clairvoyance in some cases, clairempathy, clairsentience, many different clairs, and using them in a given moment. How many times have you went into somewhere and you've went instantly cold, but then you've seen an image of a loved one? You've walked into your home and all of a sudden you've smelt the perfume that your loved one once wore on a daily basis. They swore by, but yet they are no longer with us. That you do not have that scent in your home, but you still smell it. This, my friends, is very, very
She
real.
said, that one of the things that spirits sometimes do is they'll call your name. And when you hear them call your name, sometimes they'll actually call your name using a familiar voice of someone that's living.
And I fully agree with that, what Matt just said. The reason why they do this, right, is very, very simple. When you are working with energy, energy wants to work with you. Therefore, if you like the idea of leprechauns and spirit, or you like the idea of angels, and you like the idea of this, the imagery that you have formulated to be a safe zone in your mind that you are comfortable with, the spirit will portray. The same with voices. If there is someone who you are very comfortable with speaking to, or there is somebody who you are very comfortably attuned with when they were going out their earthly existence, it makes logical sense for the spirit world to mask that audio. Therefore, I know masking it sounds like it's a bit corrupt and a little bit deceitful, but that is going to welcome you with open arms into listening. If it was somebody that you didn't want to hear, you would switch off. You'd be like, oh, I don't want to listen to that again. It would scare you. They don't want you scared. You can't operate with the spirit world when you are going through fear, because fear kicks in the automatic response of the human form, fight or flight. When you are in fight or flight, you are no good to the spirit world, because unfortunately you won't be able to receive information. Your brain is trying to keep you alive. It's panicking. I would just mention that, Matt.
For example, you might hear your name being called and think it was your husband. You might hear your name being called and think that it was, your mom that's still living or your dad still living, but they're not in the house or they're not with you. That's one of the things that, the spirit world does to kind of test the connection and to get your attention. And what they're hoping is that you'll start to recognize those ways that they try to reach you and connect with you.
And I would actually add one more to that with what Matt just said there, right? The spirit world will not only try different ways to get in touch with you, but what they will do is you as a person, right? You think of it like this. Each and every one of you have clair senses. Now, your clair senses are effectively, in this example, are going to be this bottle of water. All of your clair senses, when they are fully functioning and they are refined, this bottle of water is full. So if this is at the very, very bottom, where it is now, you could perceive that you're probably half able to use your senses and to be able, because whilst you're always actively using your senses, it's about whether your awareness is brought to that clair sense. If this was empty, your clair sense is obviously there, but your awareness isn't. If this is full, then you are fully refined and you are picking up information. What the spirit world can do is, because they know where you're lacking, where you need more help with your clair senses, they want this bottle to be full. They want you to be able to work with them instantly. But what they can't do is you can't give you all of the awareness in one given moment, because you as a person would go into meltdown. You couldn't comprehend it. You wouldn't be able to understand it. Therefore, one day they might work with you clairvoyantly. Sorry, the energy gets really strong sometimes. They might work clairvoyantly. So if your clairvoyant abilities was very, very low, for the next 2 weeks, guess what's going to happen? Your clairvoyant abilities, you'll start seeing shadows. You might start seeing things in the corner of your eye. Yeah? How many of you are seeing that? Where you turn and you just see something darting in the corner of your eye. The spirit world are gradually getting you used to clairvoyance. They're not just going to show you something that's going to freak you out. They're getting you used to seeing them from behind the scenes. Then, once this has been dialed up to almost full with using clairvoyance, they're not just going to only come to you in spirit form to visually see them. They'll be like, right, okay, Jordan's awareness is now to the point where when we are there in energy form, he's perceiving our energy. What could we do now? Well, I tell you what, Jordan's a very good listener. Why don't we start to use his clairaudient abilities? Let's start speaking to him for the next 2 weeks. Over the 2 weeks, I want you to document what he hears, what he doesn't hear, what state of what stage of his emotions he's at. Is he happy when he's hearing us? Is he angry when he's hearing us? Let's try and fine-tune that for him. The spirit world are working with each and every one of you. Sorry. So I would go a little bit more and say that whilst the spirit world will use your senses and your clair abilities, they will also fine-tune them for you.
One of the other ways that I always knew the spirit was with me is that when I was by myself, or when a spirit would come in, and this would normally happen at night, when I'd be by myself in my bedroom, all of a sudden I would smell funeral flowers. All of a sudden the whole...
What have we just been mentioning there about the spirit world gradually building you up? It's worth knowing I've never watched this video of Matt's before, and a lot of the things that we're explaining are what Matt is leading into. Using your clair abilities will build up your different senses. We already heard there that they have been allowing Matt to hear them. They've also been making their presence known when he's been in his bedroom. They're also now allowing him to smell them.
Whole room would smell like a floral shop.
Sorry, I've got it.
Like, you know when you go to someone's memorial service and you can smell that pungent smell of flowers? That would happen to me when I was a little kid. I remember yelling and screaming and crying and calling my mom, and my mom would come in and explain to me that someone was there visiting me. And my mom would always ask me to look for clues. She'd say to me, okay.
And what a great support network is. Matt has a perfect example of a family who are not just wanting the best of Matt in those moments to be able to use these abilities, but they are actively giving him clues for being able to learn it for himself, rather than saying, Matt, this is happening for this reason, this is what you now need to do. They are saying, look for clues. What better way than giving a child the tools to be able to look for the answers to which they seek, rather than just telling them. Remember, right, the spirit world, it's about you becoming the greatest version of yourself and going through the tribulations of life to come out the other side as a medium, as somebody who has gained this knowledge for yourself. If the spirit world just come right now and impregnated each and every one of your minds with every ideology that you needed for spirit communication, you wouldn't appreciate it. You wouldn't appreciate the struggles. A lot of people, when they see people like myself and Matt, right, you just think, oh, they've just getting it because the spirit world have done it. But I guarantee each and every one of you, Matt's worked his bottom off to get where he's getting, right? And I've worked my bottom off to get to where I'm getting. But that's what a lot of you don't see. You just think, oh, they're gifted, or they've just got these special abilities. We're not gifted. We've chosen to work with energy, and we've chosen to work hard with energy, more importantly. I think it's sometimes, right, it's the cop-out of mankind. We always think there's a quick solution. We always think that there's a quick answer to become mediums, to become the best version. But the problem is, the reality of it is, the harsh reality of it is it takes time, commitment, determination, willpower, for getting the results to which you seek.
Do you see anyone around you? And I sometimes I would see a shadow or a silhouette of somebody, and she'd say, okay, what do they look like?
And I think for each and every one of you, right, who is experiencing, or you have a child, for example, and they're experiencing paranormal activity, or they're experiencing this, we've got full videos on this, by the way. We've got full videos that you can go and watch. But I would recommend each and every one of you to encourage the child. Or if it's you who's watching this video and you're not a child and you're an adult and it's happening, I would encourage you to ask more questions. Ask why it's happening in that way. Ask who they are. Ask what they want. It's not like they're coming to steal your soul or they need your vessel because unfortunately they want to come and have another go in life. They will be trying to get you a message. They will be trying to help you in some way, shape or form. And by asking the questions, not only is it validating to you that you haven't went crazy, but it's allowing the spirit world to see that you are becoming ready. You are preparing for the next stage of your mediumship journey.
Is it a male? Is it a female? Is it a woman? Is she wearing long hair? Does she have dark hair? Is there some clothing that you can recognize?
And this is absolutely amazing, right? Because what we are doing in the first instance there, without even knowing it, we are going through the questioning stage in our mind, which each and every one of you, if you want to become mediums, you need to have this, right? A lot of people don't realize this, and they just think getting information from the spirit world is just about being open to work and being there for spirit, and they're going to tell you what you need to know. No, you are the one who is bloody asking the questions. And by getting into your mind what they're wearing, What did it look like? What's the distinguishing features? What aroma did it have? What sort of presence do you think they have, or the male or the female? Asking this and telling this to a child or to anyone who's new into mediumship, this is fundamental for your development, because immediately it's not going to become unnatural for you later on in mediumship when you are given evidence, because that's what this forms. It forms the building blocks of your evidential statements. If you are getting this information at the very, very beginning stages, then it's going to become more natural, more fluently later on.
My mom used to try to get me to speak about these things, but being so young, I never entertained it. I was so afraid that I'd be pulling the covers over my head. But what I
Matt, I've got to openly admit, I mean, going back to my story, that's exactly what I had done. I pulled the covers over my head, put it down, and then I seen the light coming closer, pulled it back over, and then the next minute I had 2 full body apparitions stood there staring at us, and I was just like terrified. So I fully get with what Matt's saying, and I can guarantee there's going to be a lot of you who are watching this now who remembers when you were younger and you got scared. That would naturally be the first thing that you've done. So put yourself in my position. Right? Put yourself in my position. When I lifted that cover, because it was the safety and the sanctuary of not wanting to, pulled it back down, and you see 2 spirits looking at you, full-bodied, what would you do? I was freaked out a bit, like, to be
realize
honest.
now is that these are just ways. They weren't trying to scare me.
No.
These souls were just trying to talk to me. And here's one of the things is that I've noticed by doing all of these readings that these are some of the same ways that your loved ones communicate with you. And I want to talk to you about this for 1 minute.
100%. Your loved ones will come to each and every one of you in very different ways. Remember, you are all unique. You all have very different skill sets and abilities to you. Some of you might be very good listeners. Some of you might be very good healers. Some of you might be very, in terms of empathically in tune. Therefore, your clairvoyant abilities, coming back to the bottle analogy, some of you might not have much clairvoyant abilities. You've got it. It's already there. But your awareness is not with it. Remember, you all have Clair abilities. Every one of you have fully functional Clair abilities. A lot of people are like, oh, I've got a blockage, I can't see them. No, you telling yourself you've got a blockage is what's stopping you and prevent you from seeing the spirit world. A lot of people say, I'm trying to see the spirit world, Jordan. No, you are actively encouraging it not to work, because you are telling yourself before you've even done it that you are trying. Stop trying and start doing it. Don't make excuses. Don't put mental blocks in your way. Every one of you have the ability to use Clair abilities to your greater effect. However, unfortunately, what happens a lot of the time is specific Clair functions you won't be able to perceive. Whilst they are there and they are operating as should, at full capacity, your awareness is not drawn to that sense.
Right? I was just doing a reading for this man. All right. And I love this reading. This to me, like, is one of the number 1 ways that your loved ones come to reach you. And I got to tell you that a lot of times that's the reason why we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Does that keep happening to you? You keep waking up at 222 or...
Well, we do have angelic numbers, and it would be absolutely awesome. We've got a full video on all of the different angelic signs and that, right? But there's a lot of you who will wake up at that time. There's a lot of you, remember, coming back, not just in a spirit sense. Sometimes it could be in the bodily function sense. Sometimes it could just be a case of you've went through a very traumatic period, and unfortunately your body now, your mind now has went into hyperdrive. It needs to be able to stop, and that's sometimes when it happens, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people see it as being paranormal and mediumistic. It's not. However, then we've got the other side of the spectrum. Sometimes in a mediumistic capacity, in a paranormal, it can happen where the spirit world will visit you. A visitation will occur at night time. Why does it occur at night time? Is it because they want to come and steal your soul and, oh, the veil's thinner? No, it's very simple. It's because you, when you are in a sleep state, your mind, your high racing octane mind, in a sleep-like state, has dropped into a lower theta. During this time, the spirit world can actively come to you and they can give you information. They can give you some of the signs that you wouldn't pick up on during the day.
Or 3:33 in the morning. This is what I like to call visiting hours. You know, heaven does have visiting hours where they come from.
One of the things that I'll say with angelic signs, I get 111, I get 4 1s, I get 4 2s. I get them all of the time, right? And what you've got to realize is with that, the sign itself a lot of you'll be like, oh, well, maybe you're just looking at, you want it to happen, so you're manifesting that sign to take place. But I'll let you in on a little secret, right? I took my son. We went to a place in Kielder to go and see the stars. And unfortunately, right, the night was an absolute write-off. The night I had chosen, I was so peed off, if I'm honest with you. To the point where I was like, why did yous let me come out here? Why did yous let me come out here with my son to see the stars when yous knew that the stars wouldn't be out? So I went in a little bit of a tantrum in my mind with the spirit world. And then my son said, look at the time, Dad, 2:22. And I was like, and it was just after I had said that. And I was like, oh, there's obviously something I'm meant to see. And then in those moments, a lot of you will be like, oh, well, maybe he's seen it was an angelic sign. He hadn't been taught about these signs. I hadn't mentioned it to him, and I'm probably the only person who will mention it to him. I'm the only one who talks about these different signs and symbiologies from the spirit world, and energy imprints that'll be sent. So he said 2222, and I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. Why you've just said that straight after I've just said it. I was like, all right, well, we'll just continue on. We'll see what happens. And then my son said, I says, look, son, like, we're not going to see anything. Let's just head back home. And my son said, do you know what it is, Dad? I've had a really nice night. I think he was trying to pick it up a bit. The fact that he knew I was a little bit upset that I had put so much time, or I had went so far to try and get him to see the stars. And unfortunately, so I think he was kind of putting my mind at ease that, look, it's all right. It's not your fault, Dad, sort of thing. He says, it's all right, Dad. But you know what would make this night really good? If we could just see any animal. If we could just see any animal, it would just make my night. And I kid you not, folks. I kid you not, right? Even like then the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and even now they do. We turned a corner, and there, in the middle of this dark country road, was an owl. And it was sat in the middle of my lane. And a lot of you might go, well, that's a coincidence. I drove up to it. It didn't move. It wouldn't move. It was just staring at us. I was just like, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. And even he said, oh, that's a sign from my angels, isn't it, Dad? I was just like, well, son, I don't know what you've just done there, but you try and wish me the lottery numbers. Try and do something of that nature, because that was amazing. How on earth? And that showed me how much in tune he is, because he's very empathically in tune with mankind. He's a very sensitive child. He's very hypersensitive. But the fact that he requested something of that nature, and then automatically around the next bend, that happened after he had just seen the sign. It was just fascinating to me to see, and it just shows you how the spirit world will try to get you signs, symbiologies, every minute, every second of every day. But unfortunately, sometimes we don't notice
from the other side to reach us here in this world. And those are the hours when usually everybody's fast asleep, everybody's in a deep sleep, and that's the number one time that your loved ones in spirit come to visit. Well, for this man, there was this man that I was just recently reading for, and he was in a lot of grief. He had lost his mom, and in the last moments of his mother's life, she only had a couple years to live. He moved into his mother's house. He sold his house.
And I mean, we've got to sympathize, because for every person who watches my channel, Matt's channel, I could pretty much guarantee you've all come to us because you've experienced grief. So we all know how disturbing, how distressing, how uncomfortable it can be to lose a loved one. But don't worry, that's why you found us. We can help you to connect.
You know, luckily he was still single, so he could do that. He sold his house. He moved in with his mom. He says, Mom, I'm going to spend, as much time with you as possible. And him and his mom had such an amazing time with one another, where literally every day she would make him homemade Italian meals. One night he'd be having lasagna. One day he was having pasta. One day he was having eggplant parmesan, like all these different things. And then, his mom had passed away, and he was in, really just such deep grief.
And one of the things is, especially when you've like committed into that, right? Put yourself into this gent's position. Everything that he's known, everything that he's worked for, everything that he's come to become a creature comfort to, he's then been catapulted into a different scenario where he's had to shut up shop, move in with his mom. You know, they've had a lovely time together, but that connection that they've formed, those last minutes that they've shared, all of this is going to add to the grieving process.
He'd gotten so close with her before she had died. They'd spent all these moments together, eating and sharing stories and spending moments with one another. And then his mom passed and he was completely lost. Well, don't you know that literally there was a couple nights where he woke up at 2:30 in the morning and he woke up swearing that somebody was cooking in the kitchen.
And again, right, let's not just go straight down the mediumship. Right, listen, I'll be open and transparent with you, right? I'm the sort of way that my brain works is I've got to have evidence, I've got to see with clarity, and I see things and I break them down into processes. What could be happening here is part of the grieving process. Our brain is reliving those moments, whether that's in a sleep state. Remember going back to my story, when I woke up and I was kind of compos mentis and I was like, oh, well, was it or wasn't it? But then the dog jumped off my bed. So that was the evidence side of it. Could we have a reasonable argument for that this person had endured the suffering and pain of the grieving process and had wanted and needed to hear cooking in the kitchen? Would it be reasonable to say that perhaps he wanted his mom to be in the kitchen, to smell that cooking again? Could he be manifesting it with his mind? 100%, 100% without a shadow of doubt. However, I can guarantee you with certainty, right, when this person has been experiencing it, if it is mediumistic, then there would have been more sustenance to it. There would have been more evidential key points to it. You can't just look at one story and say, oh, it's 100%, it's mediumistic, it's 100% paranormal. I'm not saying this person's story isn't. It's a beautiful story, but we've got to look at both sides of the spectrum, because a lot of people just want it to be with spirit all of the time. And I get it. I understand why it would be. It's working with spirit's amazing. A lot of the time when people are grieving, the brain goes through very bizarre scenes. We'll start manifesting things that, because it's in such panic mode, it's a piece of your brain, a piece of your heart has been torn out. Therefore, to fill that void, our brain starts remembering scenes. It starts seeing people in our sitting rooms. It starts seeing people that we want to see. We start envisioning it. We imagine it. It's like if I said to each and every one of you now, if you imagine a white ball bouncing on a solid black tiled floor, with each bounce, I want you to hear the sounds that resonates as it impacts the floor and it bounces back up. Each and every one of you have now started imagining that. Well, don't think for 1 minute that when you lose someone, your brain hasn't got that functionality to be able to imagine things occurring. What we have to do is to look at scenarios and situations and experiences, debunk them before we prove them as being the afterlife. When it's the spirit world, it's very, very poignant, because to the person, it's not just a case of was it possibility. A lot of people have got if, what if. When it's spirit, it's that moment they were there. Everyone else might not believe it, but I know that that was spirit communication. That is how you can always tell a story with spirit.
Like all of a sudden he woke up, he told me, Matt, he's like, I got up out of bed. He's like, and I could literally smell garlic in the frying pan. Like that's what his mom would do. She'd like have oil and garlic and make meatballs and certain things. And she would start early in the morning. So a couple times he woke up and he thought his mom was still living, and he got up and he ran to the kitchen, and then come to find out nobody was there. Nobody.
And I mean, again, that's heart-wrenching, isn't it? It's not only heart-wrenching to know that your loved one's gone, but part of the brain processing the loss, coming back to what we mentioned with animals, is you've become so accustomed to something happening. It's become so ritualistic that it's an expectance. And then when they're gone, unfortunately, your brain sometimes, again, I'm not saying that this isn't of spirit, but what I'm saying is we've got to look at both sides of the spectrum to have a strong argument for and against. But in this person's story, the mind is still going through what they would intentionally have been going through if their loved one was alive. However, I do believe this is with spirit. Matt wouldn't be speaking about it if it wasn't. But remember, for each and every one of you, keep it in mind that we can't always just deem something to be of spirit or paranormal.
he was cooking, and he it was like absolutely like driving him crazy. Like this man was like looking at the pan, he was going and he was like checking the pilot, like doing all these crazy things, thinking how could this be happening?
Which you would, wouldn't it? I mean, it's quite scary to think. Like if you're lying in bed and you wake up and you have a thought that you have smelt food cooking, especially with someone like me, I burn food all of the time. And I would go as far as say I would probably leave the cooker on. I'm honestly, especially if I'm hyper focused on something with me ADHD, if I'm hyper focused on something, then unfortunately for me, I tend to forget other things that I'm doing. I've got to write everything down to kind of keep my little brain in order. So if I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I could smell somebody cooking breakfast. Like I would naturally instantly think, crap, what have I done? I'd be straight down them stairs to see what I had been doing. And then when you see that there's no one there and there's nothing on, it's going to start raising alarms in your mind, isn't it? If you've got a good understanding, you're going to be like, well, that was me Auntie Bessie, that was me mum, it's something they would do, it's a special moment with you. If you've got a bad understanding, then it's going to be like, what the living hell is going on in my home? Help, I need a priest, I need this, I need an exorcist, I need all of these different things.
Thank you, Linda Strawberry, for that little tip there. And I gotta tell you guys, excuse me, so good. Excuse me, I'm dying over here. Please, if I die, somebody talk to me. No, I'm kidding. I'm recovering from the flu. So I had the flu a few weeks.
I love Matt's energy. He's a class human being. When I see people, right, and a lot of you who use psychic abilities will do this. I operate within a psychic capacity and also within a mediumistic capacity. They're very, very two different things. But psychically, when I look at someone, I can see their aura. And that's how I naturally get drawn to someone. If I know somebody has a good aura, white for mine's always white, or it's jet black, like blacker than black. When I'm poorly, mine goes black. When I'm just every day, it's white. Right? That's because of the person that I am. It's the way that I am as a human being. When I see people with white auras, I automatically just want to help them. I want to be able to work with them. I want to be able to, help them overcome whatever hurdles. Because those people with white auras are destined not just for great things, but they are wanting to help humanity. They're working selflessly. They are working in harmony with energy. And for a lot of you who have different colour auras, that's not because you're not working with energy. It's just you've got different motives. You've got different emotional things going on with you in the world. Your aura, fun fact, will change pretty much every day depending on your mood. I used to do this thing where people would come into work and I'd be like, oh, you've got a green aura today. And they'd be like, oh, what does that mean? I'd be like, go and research it. But what I'll tell you now is I know that you're self-healing. I know that last night you have an argument and today that you are deep in contemplation about how you are going to take it forward. And they'd just be like, how did you know all that? It's like, who you spoke to? I don't need to speak to no one. I can just tell by looking at you. I know what to speak. I work with the spirit world to tell us what to say. It's fascinating. It really is.
Back, and now when I talk, sometimes I cough. But anyways, here's what I want to let you guys know. That was his mom's way of coming through and letting him know that she was there and with him. Same thing happened to another client. I was reading this one.
So she come forward in evidence, and as per her day-to-day living, she showed her son so that he could deal with the grieving. You could argue and say, well, actually, it's kind of not helped because in a human way, right, that could cause more distress and trauma because the loved one is starting to deal with it and then they're going through it and they're like, oh, my mom's here. Oh, she's not here. But I would say that in this case, she would have known her son would have either found it funny or would have been speaking to Matt anyway, and Matt would have highlighted that it's her. So as part of the evidence, it was necessary in those moments for her to do what she done. I really do.
Woman, she had a similar situation. She lived with her dad. Her dad was her best friend, and literally, her dad was, I forget what he was. I think he did something with trucking. But anyways, every morning he would get up at literally 4:30 in the morning and he would make Folgers coffee. And she remembers when she lived with her dad, every morning, him getting up, the Folgers coffee, going on, and then him going to work.
And so a lot of you will be like, well, hang on a minute. You're telling me, Matt, that the world of intelligence come forward and showed a cup of coffee. I completely agree with that, right? If this person every morning, as part of their evidence, as Matt just said there, right, there's a link between what the human being would have known and come to know and expected of this person to what they're shown. However, what I would say is right, if, for example, I've seen people saying, oh, did your grandma like apples? Like, seriously, genuinely, right? This isn't me making this up. I've seen people who are on platforms claiming to be mediums saying, does your grandma just showing us fruit? Does that mean anything? They're using hedge words, non-committal statements, right? That's wrong. Then you could question it. But what Matt's just said in his opening statement, right, not only confirms why the coffee would be coming through, but explains the reason that the person, it would be significant to them as part of the spirit's evidence. For example, if your loved one every morning woke up and made a fresh brewed coffee, would only use a specific brand, and then after that coffee they had another humanistic ritual, that builds up part of an evidential line. That gives you statements of fact that you can feed back to the loved one, and they can know without any doubt that their loved one is in spirit. Unfortunately, what you see in this day and age is, I think I've got a male or a female. Could be a male, could be female. Do you have either? And the person's like, well, I've got a male. I've got an Uncle Frank in spirit. And they're like, your Uncle Frank tells me that he used to love playing darts. And when he played darts, did he like any other sports? And you're like, well, actually, like football. And he's telling me that he loved football too. And sadly, that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing mediums who are trying to gain and cold read individuals to gain information from them, extract information from them psychically to feed it back to them, claiming to be medium. Sadly, it's not the case. So in Matt's respect there, what Matt just said, he's not only just validated why the spirit would come through and show coffee, because in a normal reading you'd be like, well, that makes no sense. Why would that make sense in a reading? Coffee, the spirit will can tell you much more than that. But as per the evidence, it makes logical sense to the individual receiving the reading why that would be the case. So you can see why in some respects, showing a cup of coffee at a certain time wouldn't be evidential. But in this respect, because the person in receipt of the information knew immediately that their loved one was in spirit was there, it's almost like a trigger word for an emotional response. The spirit will know that by seeing that, they're going to know instantly that they're with you.
And it would wake her up. She remembered hearing the door slam, smelling Folgers coffee, and then she would go back to bed. Well, don't you know that after her dad died in her own home where her dad did not live, randomly she would wake up at 4:30 in the morning at certain times and smell Folgers coffee. And she would get up and she'd be like, who's in my kitchen? Nobody's there. Why?
Remember, awareness of the clairsenses.
Because your loved ones in spirit still carry their personality. In the same way that they smelled here in this world, the same way that they acted here in this world, it's the same in the afterlife. Your mom is still your mom. Your dad is still your dad.
So the only thing that I would say with that, right, is what you've got to understand is, because a lot of you might be freaked out by this, because if they're a nasty person in this life, you're naturally going to assume when they go back to spirit, they're going to still be that nasty person. Whilst they will bring facets of who they were for evidential purposes when you are gaining and receiving a mediumship reading to validate that they are in the afterlife and the afterlife is actually a thing, that doesn't mean to say the ugly humanistic traits that you knew them by, the anger, the jealousy, the greed, the hatred, the corruption. If you had, say, Bob was your uncle and you were trying to communicate with Bob, and as per his vocabulary on this planet, he swore a lot and he said like foul words, then he would say some of those words in a reading, because it's no point of him coming across as being such a well-spoken person if he didn't speak like that. So therefore, he will say, oh, tell her to effing this, that, even like a effing new boyfriend or stuff. That the medium will speak like that if it holds evidence. But that's not because the spirit is in spirit speaking like that now. It's as per the evidence. The ugly humanistic traits that are contained and confined within the human form stay on the planet. You don't take any evil or negativity back into the spirit world. Unfortunately, there's just literally, that's what you come here for. You don't have any room for that, any tests like that in the spirit world.
Your best friend is still your best friend. Death never separates us. So what happens is even as a medium, when I connect,
life goes on. Each and every one of you remember that, because there's people like me and Matt who can prove that.
With your loved ones, when they come into the room, I'll actually smell their presence. That's how I know who's a smoker. That's who I know. For example, I was just doing a reading with somebody who worked for the oil company. When I was connecting with the soul, all in the room, I could smell crude oil. It's because when your loved ones are around, sometimes you'll pick up on that fragrance. And sometimes you might be the only one that smells it.
100%. Again, why wouldn't you? Remember, each and every one of you, if you are just not working in a mediumistic capacity and you are just the traditional everyday person, right? And you haven't brought your awareness to your clear senses, it's going to be quite overwhelming if you start using them randomly. You could walk, say, into a hospital and you might start to smell death. Death smells putrid, by the way, if any of you. It's just I've been fortunate enough not to actually see a dead body, but the spirit world have allowed us to smell what it's like. It's not nice, but the spirit world, again, for each and every one of you, right? Whilst you haven't went through an experience and you haven't learned from an experience, the spirit world can show you things in meditations. They can show you things in your sleep. So don't worry if there are things that you think, well, actually, hang on a minute, I've not experienced this, so how am I going to refine this clear sense, Jordan? Don't worry, the spirit world have very good techniques to educate you without you even being aware of it.
For example, when I was a little kid, I used to get so frustrated because when a spirit would be with me or a spirit would try to contact me, for example, I would smell those funeral flowers and I'd be like, oh, immediately I would freeze. When I smell funeral flowers in my bed, like I'd be like, oh, I know right away like that a spirit was right there, and I'd get so scared. I'd be yelling for my mom to come in.
I mean, you've got to love Matt, haven't you? His energy is absolutely great, and I can only imagine each and every one of us would be exactly the same in that situation. You naturally, as a child, you're going to go to the first thing that comes into your mind, and it's going to be, I need safety. Mommy, daddy, whoever you need to speak to in those moments to try and bring some sort of a resolve to the situation that you are experiencing, because it's, to the human mind, a lot of the time, it's incomprehensible why some of these things are happening. Remember, the spirit world is a world of intelligence. Our human minds barely, we can just decode what the spirit world want us to see. A lot of people will tell you that they've seen the spirit world, they've seen this, they've seen that, they've seen this, they've seen that. We get shown what the spirit world want us to know. That's it. A lot of these people who sell you these dreams and sell you all of these ideas of that the spirit world are walking around mowing lawns and there's like a big massive, a massive shopping complex in spirit, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and the problem is the reality is it's just simply not true. It's an illusion.
And I remember like dragging my mom into the room and being like, Mom, smell this. And my mom would be like, no, I don't smell it. And I remember this one vision, actually, one night when I was a little kid, there was this spirit that was standing right in the corner of the room. And, the spirit smelled of these funeral flowers. And I was like, Mom, come here. You got to smell this. And my mom came in the room, and my mom, she's got that big Italian, snaz. She's like this. And she's like, no, I don't smell it. I'm like, Mom, I smell it. She's like, nah.
And the thing is right, whilst we're explaining there about the experience Matt is having where he's actually going through and perceiving, smelling the spirit, whilst his mom couldn't smell it in those moments, there are individuals who will also smell in that moment. If it was, see, the thing is what you've got to remember is right, for evidential purposes, if the spirit world wanted his mom to smell at the same time, she would have smelt the exact same that he was. But it was imperative for the spirit world to only show it to Matt. Matt needed to see that there was a difference between him and his mom in those moments, that he's using something that his mom is not to scare him, but to get him ready, to build him up as a medium.
No, I don't smell it. And I'm like, Mom, come over here. And I dragged her over to the corner to where the spirit was. And I'm like, Mom, smell this right here. And she was in the corner. I'm like, you don't smell that? I'm like, Ma, it's in my face. It's everywhere. And she smells. She's like, no, I don't smell it. And then my mom explained it to me. It was because the soul that was coming through was trying to reach me, not her. And I got...
Yeah, a lot of people think that when the spirit world, for example, if the spirit world manifested in one room, for example, behind me now, if the spirit world manifested in this room, everyone who come into this room would be able to pick up on that, sense that. But that's not the case. The spirit world can affect your clear senses and manipulate them as and when they choose. For example, if there was multiple people in this room, the spirit world could come to me as a medium and they could whisper something. That doesn't mean to say everyone else is going to hear. However, they could also whisper to me and allow everyone to hear. So it all depends on the person. It all depends on the scenario that's taking place. But a lot of the time when the spirit world will do something around other people, it's to highlight to you and to bring the attention to you that you are doing something that these aren't. It's kind of a hard-hitting statement that you can work mediumistically if you want to. We are showing you that you are picking up on something that these people are not.
And I got so upset because like I was sensing and feeling these things, but my mom wasn't. And listen, my mom is a psychic medium, so you would think that she would pick up or sense that spirit there, but no.
Which just validates for me the fact that, and it goes for my argument, that the spirit world, right, have two psychic mediums in one room, and they choose to go to one and not to both. A lot of people think it's just an energy, and once it's manifested in the materialistic plane, and once it's revealed itself, everyone in that vicinity picks up on it. But it's not. This story proves that the spirit world can select and go to who they want, whose clear senses they want to use in that given moment, which is absolutely amazing. And what a great story.
That's not what happens. Because when a soul wants to connect directly with you, you might sense and feel something that your husband doesn't. And that's the reason why I'm telling you that. Because so many times I'll tell this to people and people don't trust their intuition or when a spirit is around because they think that they are crazy. They'll be like, oh my God.
How many of you asked the question, right? How many of you? Because I'll be open and honest, right? If you asked about 100 people, if they've seen or experienced something they can't explain to do with the spirit world, I guarantee you 90 of those people, right, would have seen or experienced something they can't explain. It only come paramount to me, the amount of people who had actually seen spirit and were scared to speak out about it. That's why I'm doing the message of help he'll serve, to try and normalize it, to show mankind there is literally nothing to fear from, with a good understanding, of course. But the amount of people who have had experiences where they've been, both of them have been in the sitting room and all of a sudden they'll both have the same vision or they'll see the same shadow just walking past them. I was talking to one person the other day who was explaining about how when he was in his old house, he woke up and seen a shadow person, a spirit, standing over his girlfriend looking at her, and then just walked away. All of these stories, right, I'd love to know in the comment section, right? And if you've made it this far, remember to smash the like button. But if you've got any stories about your paranormal experiences, let me know down in the comment section. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring this video to an end here. And I think, depending on how good this one goes, we'll watch part 2. Because believe it or not, right, we're only 14 minutes into a 27-minute video. And it's already at 2 hours and 7 minutes. So I'm going to have to end it now because I've got some things that I need to do. But remember, we will come back over and we will have a look at the rest of this video because I love Matt's videos. He's such a good medium. Shout out to Matt. Remember to go subscribe to him. If you did enjoy this video, remember to check out the videos pinned at the top left and right. And until the next time, bye bye for now.